Welcome back to another reaction
Video.
Ladies and gentlemen, today's
Yeah.
video is a very deep video.
Okay.
This is a story of one of the greatest and most influential Canadian heroes.
Of course.
His name is Terry Fox, and this video was recommended. And so many people have recommended us to check out this video, and so we're checking it out.
Today.
And for us, it is also a learning curve. We learn from this. Our friends who are watching our channel also learn, and you Canadians too, you learn. So if you don't mind, please try to watch at least all of the video.
Yeah, because this video.
Yeah, it's deep, I
so
tell you.
deep.
And he died of cancer and stuff like that.
And so for that reason, his legacy still lives.
The legacy lives on.
Yeah.
Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, try to check out our Patreon in the description. No more yapping. Let's kick in.
Terrence Stanley Fox, also known as Terry, was an athlete, humanitarian, cancer research activist, and one of the most cherished Canadian heroes of all time. In 1980, with one leg amputated after his own cancer treatment, Terry Fox set out on his Marathon of Hope, with the goal of running the entire way east-west across Canada, and to raise $1 million for cancer research.
I've been through a lot and I've seen a lot, and I'm trying to raise as much money as I can for cancer. And I'm trying to be an example, and a good example to people. And if I make it to Vancouver, it'll be great, but if I haven't raised any money, and if I haven't done that part of being an example to other people, then it isn't really worth it.
Although he was
He's really young.
Yeah.
I thought he was an elderly person.
He's so young. I'm actually surprised.
He looks like he's in his 20s. Look at him. He's really young, a guy. And the influence he brings.
Any money, and if I haven't done that part of being an example to other people, then it isn't really worth it.
Although he was forced to stop short of his goal and ultimately lost his own battle to cancer, Terry's legacy lives on and is as strong as ever 40 years later. His goal of $1 million has been met almost 800 times over, and the annual Terry Fox Run continues to be the world's largest cancer research fundraiser.
Wow.
Terry Fox was born on July 28, 1958 in Winnipeg, Manitoba. The second oldest of 4 kids, he had an extremely competitive spirit, and he hated losing. He would stick to any activity until he would eventually succeed. And this fighter spirit would stay with him for the rest of his life and would eventually come to define him. His family moved to British Columbia in 1966 and eventually settled down in the city of Port Coquitlam outside of Vancouver. He played soccer, rugby, and baseball, but it was his passion for basketball that really drove him forward. Although he was only 5 feet tall and a pretty bad player at the time, Terry ended up making his school's basketball team in grade 8. His coach thought he was built more like a runner and encouraged Terry to take up cross-country running, which he did to please his coach, but only to stay on the basketball team. Although he was the last substitute and only played 1 minute in the actual season in his grade 8 year, he stayed with the sport and kept practicing all summer long. By grade 10, he was a regular player on the team, and by grade 12, he won the Athlete of the Year award alongside his best friend Doug Allward. After high school, Terry's mother Betty pushed him to go to university, even though he wasn't quite sure what he wanted to do. He decided to look into kinesiology, thinking about becoming a physical education teacher, and enrolled at the Simon Fraser University in Burnaby. He tried out for the university's basketball team in 1976 and actually ended up getting a spot, which surprised quite a lot of people. Terry wasn't a gifted player. There were a lot of other people who tried out that were better than him, but where they couldn't match Terry was in his determination, his toughness, and his hard work, something that the coaches had definitely noticed. One night in November, that first year at SFU, Terry was driving home from Burnaby to Port Coquitlam when he got distracted driving through a construction zone and ended up rear-ending a pickup truck. And while his car was no longer drivable, Terry ended up walking away with just a little pain in his knee. Except the pain came back that December. And he thought it had something to do with the accident, so he decided to keep playing basketball and he chose to ignore it. You know, aches and pains are common for athletes. But by March 1977, the pain had intensified to a point where Terry decided he needed to go to the hospital, and he would be diagnosed with osteosarcoma, which is a type of bone tumor that usually starts near the knees. Terry believed that it had something to do with his accident a month prior, but the two were totally unrelated, and his cancer had already advanced to a point where he would need his leg to be amputated, and he would have to go through extensive chemotherapy treatment. The doctors tried to reassure Terry that he was in fact quite lucky. Recent advances in cancer research meant that his chances of survival were somewhere between 50 and 70%. And had he been diagnosed only 2 years earlier, those chances could have been low as 15%. This was the first time that Terry was introduced to the scope of cancer research, and the advancements in survival rates over the last few years.
Wow, this is actually real footage of him.
That's him. His real footage.
Oh. This kind of stories are usually deep, I tell you. And if you're out there and you're suffering from any underlying disease, something is disturbing you, all I have to say, all we have to tell you is hang in there, stay strong, stay positive. A lot can change in a single day than you can imagine.
Definitely.
There's always something. There's always someone out there that knows the solution to your problem. So stay positive, stay happy, make the best of the time you have, and talk to people. Tell people your pain, your anxiety, and talk to other people. Talk to the people that need to hear your problems, and just maybe someone would find a solution for you. Thank you.
So much.
15%. This was the first time that Terry was introduced to the scope of cancer research, and the advancements in survival rates over the last few years really impressed on him the value and the importance of doing that research. Just before his operation, Terry's high school basketball coach gave him an article about Dick Traum, an amputee who had just completed the New York City Marathon. Terry joked that he, too, would one day run a marathon, but that night he had a dream that would ultimately lead to a much bigger idea. Within 3 weeks of his operation, Terry was walking again with the help of an artificial leg, and soon after he was out playing golf again with his dad. However, the next 16 months of chemotherapy and follow-up treatments at the facilities of the British Columbia Cancer Control Agency would mark Terry for the rest of his life. There, he saw suffering like he never saw before. Hearing doctors in the other room telling young people that they had a 15% chance of surviving, hearing screams of pain, and seeing young, strong bodies withering away to this disease. Terry never forgot what he experienced at the cancer clinic, and he felt a strong sense of responsibility when he walked out of the doors for the last time. He was one of the lucky few who survived. In a letter he later wrote for funders of his marathon, he said, "I could not leave knowing the faces and feelings would still exist even though I would be set free from mine. Somewhere the hurting must stop, and I was determined to take myself to the limit for those causes." Rick Hansen, who would go on to push his wheelchair around the circumference of the entire globe and never failed to mention Terry as his inspiration, was the first to invite Terry Fox back to the world of sports after his operation by offering him a spot on his wheelchair basketball team. He would train by racing around Stanley Park in downtown Vancouver and by pushing his chair up logging roads in the mountains. And less than 2 months after being introduced to the sport, he had a spot on Hansen's team for the national championship in Edmonton. He would go on to win 3 national titles and was named an All-Star by the North American Wheelchair Basketball Association in 1980. But Terry was determined to get back on his own 2 feet. That article about Dick Traum had inspired him, and he told his family that he too wanted to complete a marathon. He started a 14-month training program, but privately, Terry was devising a far more extensive plan. His experience in hospital angered him about how little money was actually being given to cancer research. So he decided to run all the way across Canada to raise awareness about cancer research, which is a goal that he originally only shared with his best friend Doug. Terry started running often. He kept running despite the fact that artificial legs in the 80s were only designed for walking, and the additional stress of running on the leg gave him a very unusual gait. He had to hop step to give the leg springs time to readjust, and that was particularly painful for both his stump and his real leg. It led to blisters, bone bruises, and intense amounts of pain. Except Terry found that after about 20 minutes or so of running, he would cross a certain pain threshold and it would become a lot easier to just keep going. One night he was out running when he actually broke his artificial leg and came crashing down onto the ground. He just stuck his thumb out to hitchhike home and fixed his leg to be out running another 5 miles the next day.
This guy has. If there is somebody who defines the Canadian spirit, I think this guy defines that.
Definitely, it was.
Do you know what it means to be amputated and 3 weeks later you already are walking?
How do you even do that? Because it takes love.
And it's in the 80s. That means that these legs are not, these artificial legs are not even comfortable to begin with.
Compared to the one as of present. And the funny thing about it is that the other leg that's not amputated is always painful. Sometimes it pains.
God.
On September 2nd, 1979, Terry competed in a 27-kilometer long road race in Prince George, BC. He came in last, 10 minutes behind his closest competitor, but when he crossed the finish line, he was met with cheers, tears, and applause from the audience and most of the other racers. After this race, he revealed to his family his intention to run across Canada. His mother discouraged him at first, which angered him, but his father, who recognized the determined spirit of his son, had only one word to say: when. On October 15th, 1979, Terry sent a letter to the Canadian Cancer Society, letting them know about his intention to run across the country and to ask for a little bit of support for his initiative. He told them that he would conquer his disability and that he would finish the run even if he had to crawl every last mile. He made no promises that his run was going to cure cancer, but he finished his letter with this statement: "We need your help. The people in cancer clinics all over the world need people who believe in miracles. I'm not a dreamer, and I'm not saying this will initiate any kind of definitive answer or cure to cancer, but I believe in miracles. I have to." The Cancer Society was initially skeptical, but they endorsed his participation on 3 conditions. First, that he get a couple other corporate sponsors. Second, that he gets signed off by a doctor. And third, that he stop immediately if he experienced any sort of heart problems. See, Terry was also diagnosed with hypertrophy, which is an enlarged heart, something that's commonly associated with athletes. And so the doctors were aware of this, but didn't quite see it as being that much of a concern, and so they signed off on his run. They sent a second letter to various corporations for donations of necessities like a vehicle and running shoes. Adidas provided the running shoes, Ford provided them a camper van, and Imperial Oil provided the fuel. Terry turned down anything from a company that asked him to endorse a product. He was adamant that no one profit from his run except for cancer research. Terry Fox's Marathon of Hope officially began on April 12, 1980, when Terry dipped his artificial leg into the Atlantic Ocean near St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, and he filled 2 glass bottles with water from the ocean. One of the bottles he planned to keep as a souvenir, while the other he planned to pour into the Pacific Ocean when he finally made it to his destination of Victoria, BC, symbolically tying the entire country of Canada together. Terry's marathon began with very little fanfare, much to his disappointment. But he started running west anyways, with Doug following closely behind in the camper van. Those first few days of the run, Terry was faced with gale force winds, rain, and even a snowstorm. But nevertheless, he kept running west, 26 miles a day, 42 kilometers, which is the equivalent of an entire marathon, every single day. The news of Terry's run had started to spread quickly across Newfoundland, and although he was disappointed by the reception he received at the start, by the time he arrived in Channel Port aux Basques, a town of about 10,000 people on the far side of the island, the entire town had come out to greet him, and they gave him a donation of more than $10,000. He was so inspired by the reception and by the energy.
Young kids running with him.
They're encouraging him.
These kind of videos are always
It
very
is
heavy to watch.
so deep. The story is so deep. So teach people how to be resilient.
This is a pure example of selflessness. God, Canada. Why did no one warn us that this video is this heavy and hard to watch though?
dollars. He was so inspired by the reception and by the energy of the town that he ended up changing the goal of his fundraiser entirely. Instead of raising only $1 million, he was now going to raise $24 million, or $1 for every single Canadian. Why not? He thought. By the time he left the Maritimes on June 17th, the Canadian news was airing daily updates of Terry's marathon.
Wow.
He'd become a household name across the country. Terry arrived in Montreal on the 22nd and was about 1/3 of the way through his 8,000 kilometer trip. And at this point, he had raised well over $200,000. It was around this time that Terry's run caught the attention of the CEO of the Four Seasons Hotels, Isidore Sharp, who had lost his own son to melanoma back in 1978. Sharp offered food and accommodation at his hotels across the country for the remainder of the trip. And when Terry became discouraged at how little people were able to donate, Sharp pledged to donate $2 for every single mile that he ran, and then went out and persuaded almost 1,000 other businesses to do the same. This push gave Terry the persuasion he needed to continue his journey. And after a couple days break in Montreal so that he can time his arrival in Ottawa for Canada Day, Terry continued on his journey. Terry Fox crossed into Ontario at Hawkesbury on the last Saturday of June in 1980, and by then he had truly become a Canadian star. Thousands of residents came out to welcome him to Ontario, and he crossed the bridge to the sound of a brass band playing. The Ontario Provincial Police were on site, and they offered to give Terry and the camper van an escort through the entire province. And despite the sweltering summer heat, Terry continued to run 26 miles or 42 kilometers every single day. When he arrived in Ottawa for Canada Day, he met the Governor General and the Prime Minister, and then performed the ceremonial kickoff for a CFL game in front of 16,000 fans who cheered him on and gave him a standing ovation. 10 days later, he was met by a crowd of over 10,000 people at Nathan Phillips Square in downtown Toronto. As he ran towards the square, Terry was joined by Daryl Stittler, an NHL star who gave him his All-Star jersey from the 1980 game. The Cancer Society estimates that that day alone, they raised well over $100,000.
Wow.
On a single day in southern Ontario, he ended up collecting $20,000 in cash from people lining the highway, and on another he met Bobby Orr, who gave him a check for $25,000, something that Terry remembered as being one of the highlights of his trip. In Hamilton, a man sat in a vat of banana lemon custard to raise $912 for the marathon, and in Gravenhurst, a town of only 8,000, they managed to put together $14,000 in donations.
Wow.
Terry kept to his intense schedule all the way through the province of Ontario, and as his fame grew, he committed to make every appearance that he thought would raise more money for cancer research, no matter how out of the way it was. The physical demands of the run started to take a serious toll on Terry's body. Besides those days in Montreal, he had taken no breaks. He had bad shin splints, he developed a cyst on his stump, and he was experiencing dizzy spells. At one point, he was suffering from a soreness in his leg that just wouldn't go away, and he thought it was a stress fracture, so he just kept running on it, and eventually he found out it was tendinitis, which could have been helped with painkillers, but it just goes to show how much he really avoided going in for checkups. See, throughout the run, and even in the months before, Terry seriously neglected his medical checkups. No one was able to force him to go see a doctor, and he was adamant that he didn't believe the cancer was going to come back. But by the
Oh God. We should have actually been seeing his
Yeah,
doctor
he
for
should have taken
checkup.
his checkup seriously. Sometimes some of
God.
the things that happens to us are negligence.
God. This is one of the hardest stories I've watched. It's so hard to watch.
Oh, gosh. Wow.
So,
Was going to come back. But by the end of August, Terry had made it almost all the way across the province of Ontario and was just a few short weeks away from the halfway point across Canada. But it was here in northwestern Ontario, just outside of Thunder Bay, that Terry had to take a break for just a few seconds. He was experiencing pain in his chest and coughing fits. He wasn't sure what was happening and wasn't sure what to do, but people on both sides of the highway were telling him to keep going. They said he can do it, he just had to go a few more miles, and so he did. Just a few miles later, the shortness of breath was still there and the pain in his chest had become so unbearable that Terry asked his friend Doug to drive him to the hospital in Thunder Bay. Terry was afraid that he had run his last mile, and the next day he appeared on TV to explain to Canada that his cancer had come back and had spread to his lungs. It was here that Terry Fox was forced to end his marathon of hope after 143 days. He ran a total of 5,373 kilometers, or
Christ.
3,339 miles, before it was forced to come to an end that September morning in 1980. When Terry tried to cross the street at the hospital in Thunder Bay, he collapsed onto the road. Yesterday, he was able to run 42 kilometers, but today, he could barely cross a street. His dad was recorded as saying that this is incredibly unfair, but he responded to him and said that it's not unfair. That's the thing about cancer. I'm not the only one. It happens all the time to other people. I'm not special. This just intensifies what I did. It gives it more meaning. It'll inspire more people. I could have sat on my rear end. I could have forgotten what I'd seen in the hospital, but I didn't. Terry had raised over $1.7 million by the time he was forced to end his marathon in 1980. But what he knew was Canada was about to witness the consequences of cancer, and he was hoping that this would increase the amount of donations that were coming in. A week after the marathon ended, CTV hosted a 5-hour telethon event where they ended up raising $10.5 million, including a $1 million donation from the government of Ontario and a $1 million donation from the government of British Columbia to open a cancer treatment and research facility in Terry's name. Terry had become so famous that even a letter addressed to Terry Fox, Canada was successfully delivered. By April 1981, Terry's goal of $24 million had been reached. He was able to raise $1 for every single Canadian at the time. Terry continued to fight his battle against cancer and continued to receive chemotherapy treatments. Canadians across the country hoped for a miracle, and even Pope John Paul II wrote a letter saying that he was praying for the young man.
wow.
However,
Bro was.
Oh my God.
Bro was even known by the Pope.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Prime Minister knew him, all the governors knew him. Almost the whole country, entire country knew
It
him.
means that even before he had the cancer, he already had a passion of his sporting activities.
Yeah.
And so after everything, he still didn't let what he was passionate for go. He stood by it. That's a lesson.
the country hoped for a miracle, and even Pope John Paul II wrote a letter saying that he was praying for the young man. However, unfortunately, in the early morning hours of June 28, 1981, Terry Fox passed away with his family by his side. Flags across the country were lowered to half-mast, and his funeral was broadcast on national television. The momentum that Terry Fox built did not end there. He was adamant when he was still alive that no one could finish the run for him, that he was going to get better and that he was going to do it himself. However, just before Terry passed away, Isidore Sharp, the CEO of the Four Seasons that had donated $10,000 and encouraged another 1,000 businesses to do the same, reached out to Terry to ask if they could organize an annual run in his name. Terry agreed so long as there were no winners or losers and it wasn't a competition, that anyone who wanted to could bike, walk, run, or roll with them. The Cancer Society was worried that having another fundraiser in the fall was going to take away from some of their other activities. But Sharp insisted, and he, the Four Seasons Hotels, and the Fox family organized the very first Terry Fox run on September 13th, 1981. Over 300,000 people participated in that very first Terry Fox run, raising another $3.5 million for cancer research. Schools around the world have continued the project, and in the first 20 years, it's grown to an international event in 60 countries with thousands of participants, and in 1999 alone, they raised over $15 million. And in 2013, Dr. Jay Wonder of the Mount Sinai Hospital in Toronto, who's a specialist on the type of cancer that Terry had, says that those that are diagnosed today with osteosarcoma have an 80% chance of survival, which is incredible compared to the survival rates just a few short decades ago. And the doctor says that a large part of the research can be directly attributable to the $850 million that have been raised in Terry Fox's name. Terry Fox is remembered across Canada in a number of different ways. There are statues and memorials like this one in cities across the country, like the one here in Thunder Bay or in Victoria or in Ottawa. There's the Terry Fox Courage Highway just below me. There are schools across the country, an icebreaker with the Canadian Coast Guard, and even an unnamed mountain in British Columbia that's now called Mount Terry Fox. My favorite of the memorials is probably the one in Vancouver, just outside of BC Place, that shows Terry as he would have been if he had made it all the way to the Pacific Ocean. This last week marks 40 years since Terry Fox Marathon of Hope was forced to end here in Northern Ontario. And every year since, Canadians come together to organize a run and to raise money for cancer research. And this year's no different, although it might look just a little different. The 2020 Terry Fox Virtual Run is organized on September 20th, 2020. And if you're interested in joining a now 40-year-old Canadian tradition and helping to support cancer research, please get more information at terryfox.org/run. Terry Fox is a hero to most Canadians, but not a hero for being an exception or for being a saint. He was a hero for being an average 22-year-old, someone who was angry and frustrated but chose to do something about it. He showed Canada that with the right level of determination, anything is possible, no matter how hard the odds are stacked against you.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for sticking through this video. It's a very important topic, and I know Terry Fox means a lot to a lot of Canadians, so I appreciate you guys taking the time. Please do leave a like and comment below what other topics you might want to see in the future. Some people have left the Avro Arrow, someone else mentioned the La Grande generating station, and we have both on our list. So let us know what other Canadian topics you might want to see in the future. And we'll see you next week.
May his soul continue to rest in peace. Canadians, you guys are incredibly resilient people.
Wow.
And this is a whole different level of definition. This is a whole different definition of toughness.
Yeah.
This is a whole brand of toughness, Canadians. That is not just a Canadian. He represented the Canadian spirit.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. It was not for him. It was for everybody. That is quiet leadership.
Intensive leadership. That's
Leading
a
by
good
example.
example of a
Yeah.
good leader. Wow.
Anyways,
After going through this video, I felt really broken. I didn't even have much to contribute because I wasn't expecting it like that. I thought, oh,
thank you for watching.
thank you, family and friends.